People want to make more money. People want to do things that they're passionate about, or at least interested in, or have a curiosity in. And it's very difficult because the world we're living in right now makes it extremely hard to find something that satisfies our desires, our needs, our wants, all these different things. Now, of course, there is this thing known as the 9 to 5, whether that's a corporate role, a retail job, etc., which does fund our life, so to speak, but it isn't necessarily something that we want to be doing long term, or some of us at least anyway. Apologies if you can hear noise at the back. People are mowing their lawn. Now, thinking about this, some people may say it's a very immature mindset to want to develop something that you own or create your own sort of career path. Others may say actually it's quite noble and it makes sense given where things are changing. Again, we can see with the geopolitical wars that are happening at the moment, with some of the stuff that's happening with technology, and just the shifts in culture and mindset and behavior that's happening, that there is more fluidity and adaptability that is required in the current world that we're living in at the moment. It doesn't matter whether you are in the what's known as the traditional West, and that term is, I think, outdated, or whether you're in in other sort of countries or continents such as Africa or Asia, whatever it may be. This portfolio career concept, or having a career portfolio, is something that is staying, is something that is not going to change anytime soon. And that's mainly because of the way the organizations are set up at the moment, where they're wanting to bring on contractors, they're wanting to bring on consultants who can support them and deliver on specific objectives that they want delivered on. Now, it's not to say necessarily that individuals within these organizations, as permanent members of staff, aren't able to do this stuff, but it may mean that they don't have the skills, they're not up to speed, so yes, they can't do it in the here and now. And so it makes sense to bring on these different types of people. And so this is why a portfolio career becomes more attractive. And this is why I'm talking quite a lot about contracting, consulting, and all this kind of stuff there. Now, of course, there are loads of things that come with portfolio careers, or at least idealized. And the question is, why would you want to start any type of career? It's not even just portfolio. Why would you want to start any type of career? Because I'm using the term portfolio career, not something that I've made up. It was founded by some other person who authored this book 20, 30 odd years ago. But I'm using it to illustrate and define a concept that we are already aware of, but we definitely haven't necessarily had the confidence to really act on it. So you have to ask yourself, why do you want a career? Some people may say, well, I don't even know if I'm in a career. I'm just trying to make money, And the point being made here is that you need to spend some time to think about what it is that you want for yourself. Is it something to do with time? Is it to do with money? Is it to do with, how you're spending your time with loved ones, X, Y, and Z? Is it the things that you're specifically doing? Is it how you want to feel? Like, these are all things to bear in mind with your career, but having the definition of a portfolio career, I guess, empowers you, or in some ways enables you to pursue that creation, as opposed to pursuing something that you think you should be doing because other people have done it before, and you've been told by people who are at the tail end of their life that this is the way that you do it. Times have changed, my friends, and you have to go based on, yes, you hear what they say, but you have to go based on what the market is telling you. The market defines really what you are able to do to a degree, and what you have a high probability of doing, or what you have a low probability of doing. And I'm saying it like that because I'm not saying, there are things you just can't do or whatever it may be. It's all based on probability. So you want to make sure that your odds are stacked up the best way possible. And so, I've got my notes here as per usual. I've spoken about what a portfolio career is, all that kind of stuff there. But I think the idea is that people not only want to make a lot of money, okay, some people at least anyway, but there's this idea of flexibility, and there's this idea of alignment. I think that's the key thing. It's aligning yourself to something that makes sense for you as a person. Now, there are some portfolio career coaches or experts or whatever they want to call themselves that will advocate that actually it's not necessarily about the money, X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. I think money is important. I think if you can make money from this stuff, then do it. Now, of course, it doesn't mean you'll make money straight away, but in the long term, why not? There are some people who are in a position where actually they just want to make additional income. But for a lot of us, for the people I know who are watching my channel long term, at least anyway, they want to get to a point where it's replacing their income. And they may be afraid to say that because what the hell does that look like? What the hell does that look like? Well, there has to be some start at least anyway. You may not know the full plan, but you may have an idea of what you want to do. Okay, what that looks like in terms of the mosaic of different stuff that you may be doing. Or maybe even the one thing that you're doing. Okay, sometimes you start off with one thing, then you may do multiple things at one time to then do one thing at the end. That's okay. That's your career path, so to speak. You know, when we think of these billionaires, and they're not the only examples, but I say this because they're ones that we can think of straight away. Whether this is, you know, the Musks of the world or the Trumps of the world or whatever it may be, you know them for specific stuff, good or bad, okay? But the point you made is you know them for specific stuff. So if we're thinking of Musk, you may know him for X. You know he does other stuff, but you know him predominantly for X. Some of you know him for PayPal back in the day. Others may know him for Tesla or SpaceX. Point being made is, you know he does this multiple stuff, but in your mind, there is one thing that sticks out the most. And this is typically what happens with other people for us. And so the point I'm making is that it makes sense to at least create the perception with your branding very intentionally, the sort of thing that you want people to associate with you specifically. So, you know, you come across these people who say, oh, I'm a public speaker, I'm an author, I'm this, that, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so what are you? Yes, you are all of those things. I'm not knocking that stuff because I'm those things too. So don't anyone take any offense here. But I guess what I'm saying is it doesn't really tell me like where we're directing the conversation. And it means that the individual you're speaking to can either just brush all of it or pick what they want to focus on. Okay, maybe strategically at the beginning, that's a good thing, but at some point it may not necessarily work out for your favor. So you start off with some sort of anchor. It makes sense to do that. But this is not a lesson on setting up a portfolio career because I've done that previously before. I really want to talk about the pros and cons, okay? So when we're speaking about the pros of a good portfolio career, one that is working in its favor, is where you have a certain level of freedom and flexibility, okay, to a degree. So what I mean by that is autonomy, okay? And when we think about, I've spoken about Daniel H. Pink before. He's got a number of different books, and one of them is called Drive, where he talks about purpose, autonomy, and I think it's mastery. And autonomy is key for this sense of having a deeper sense of drive, but it means you have to have a willingness. And so for those of you who are ambitious by nature, having that autonomy is going to be great. You know, you're managing your own money, you're managing where you go, you're managing when you wake up and what you do, etc., etc., etc. But that is not void of hard work. I just want to make that clear. Portfolio careers is still a career. Whether it's an entrepreneurship endeavor, a passive income endeavor, a property endeavor, whatever it is, it still requires work. So if you're thinking you got some silver bullet to not work, you are joking, my friend. I'm telling you, unless you've got crazy money already and you're throwing that into a vehicle that is pumping out some money in terms of dividends, that's a different story. But a lot of us, in the world at least anyway, don't have millions or billions of pounds or dollars or euros or yen or whatever it may be. And so it's not void of work. But there is the potential of increasing your flexibility and sense of freedom, which I'm badging as autonomy. Okay. And so even in the situation I'm in right now as an independent consultant, i.e. outside of I-35 within the UK as a contractor, I don't have to necessarily work a specific time or whatever it may be. Now, I do work times. It's not like I'm saying, I'm living the beach life. No, I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is there is a certain autonomy I have that divides me away from office politics because there are clear deliverables that I have to achieve. I just focus on delivering those. I don't need to worry about anything else unless part of my proposal highlights that, there are some consultancy stuff that I'd like to do. So autonomy is the biggest thing. It's a great thing. And if you're looking to develop some sort of portfolio career, which I think all of us has to a degree, then that is a big one. The second thing is income diversification. So what this means is it's not relying on one pure income source. Now, a lot of people are in a space. Actually, I don't want to say a lot of people. Let me not make that assumption. There are some people who are in this space, including myself, where they have a dominant income stream. So my dominant income stream is the consulting. But I also make money through other stuff, whether that is through YouTube, whether that's through my courses, coaching, sales of the book, which I need to start promoting more. Check out my book on Amazon, Michael Tabaradi. Just type in my name, you'll see it. What else is there? The odd stuff I do here and there when it comes to advisory stuff, etc., etc., they all pay me. But it doesn't match what I make from the consulting stuff. So the aim is to try and increase that stuff even more. Because there is a certain lifestyle that I want. There are certain goals that I have in mind. So with that in mind, it makes sense to spread the risk in terms of income sources and income generation and income diversification. And so you still have to work hard on something. And so if you're trying to do, let's say, for example, you got one thing and then, you want to do all these other things, I would say like master one, okay, then spend 10 to 30% of your time trying to learn the other thing, just learn it, and then start to practice and endorse yourself in these areas so that you get to a point of being good / great / mastery. Then you have two things. Then you go into the next thing. If you want to do it that way, you don't have to do it this way. That's just an example. But doing it all at the same time may take a very, very long time unless you have time on your side. And even if you have time on your side these days, because there is so much out there and we've got shiny eye syndrome, like we don't delay gratification, which means we're trying to make things work now with all these things, which means that you're burnt out, you're tired, all of that kind of stuff there. No, there's a strategy to it. So income diversification requires patience, or it requires you being strategic with choosing things that doesn't have a huge learning curve, so to speak, and therefore may take you anywhere between 1 to 3 months to learn in order for you to then kind of do it on autopilot or quite easily or whatever that looks like. So think about what that specifically looks like. But income diversification is definitely a thing. You have to think to yourself, is this just for additional incomes or is this to replace my main income? And of course, what is the future goal for you as well? What do you want to invest in? Okay, I'm not just saying in terms of investment vehicles. I'm also talking about for yourself, for your family, for experiences that you want to have, all of that kind of jazz. The next thing, which I think is a very, very true statement, is all centered around like really networking, okay? And just exposing yourself to different types of people. I will never forget during the pandemic, I met a whole cocktail of different types of people, not just within the consulting firm sort of space, but also within the scientific space. I met some very smart professors and doctors and scientists. I met some other contractors along the way and other permanent members of staff, and I still keep in contact with a lot of these different people. And they've actually come to me with opportunities or me go to them. Some of them have become really good friends as well. So there's a whole diverse set of people that you can meet that can open doors for you. And so what that ends up happening is you start to learn quicker what you can and can't do. But it's more what you can do because you realize that you have a network that you can lean on, provided that you still keep in contact with some of these individuals that can support you with your career pursuits, your portfolio career pursuits. So it's really important to notice that there is an advantage of networking. I'm not saying you have to be extroverted by nature, but you have to have the ability to hold conversation and just keep it up with individuals. Even if you have to set a calendar invite for every 90 days, do it. Do you know what I mean? Whatever it takes to keep the things going. And I guess one of the final sort of benefits, and I'm sure there are many more, but I'm going to stick to these and you can let me know if you've got any others, is the tax advantages. And why do I say this? Well, if we think about it, unless you are working for a specific organization, as in directly as an employee, or working on a fixed term basis, or inside of IR35, everything else means that you're most likely going to be working under a limited company, which means the money that you do make goes into your business account or some sort of account, and your accountant or somebody who's acting on that behalf, and that just may be you, can ensure that you are as tax efficient as possible, okay? And you are using the right instruments and tools and processes to be tax efficient, not avoidant, but efficient. So avoiding tax is illegal. Efficient tax management is okay. It's perfectly fine. And it makes sense to do this stuff. So yeah, tax efficiency is a big one. And so any sort of business expenses you have, any sort of private pensions that you may have, or, you know, all that kind of stuff there, you can utilize and sort of have less tax to pay, which means there's more money in your pocket. So bear all of this stuff in mind. Now, what are some of the hidden challenges? What are some of the cons when it comes to having a portfolio career? Well, of course, it's very dependent on the type of portfolio career or career you have in general, because most people are within this space right now. And there's almost like a professional guise of this. Okay, so you've got the person who is, you know, the corporate leader, and they're on LinkedIn, and then they realize they're popping on LinkedIn because people just, you know, love the fact they're in this position, and they're doing the odd talk here and there, and then they do the odd coaching here and there, and then they may even invest in certain things, whether it's property or like it's very UK. That's a very UK way of doing things, you know. Whereas you may have the other person who's just like, oh, bun it, I'm just gonna do everything myself. They have their own software as a service company. They are a business coach. They go to lots of different networking events. They have a high ticket offer. F you to the 9 to 5. That sort of person too. So you got your extreme ends, and you got somebody who's not doing any stuff. They're just learning as it goes. So depending on what type of portfolio career you have, let's say you're more liberal minded by nature in terms of the type of career you have, then there is a high probability, listen to what I've just said, there is a high probability of income stability. Why do I say this? I say this because you're still learning the ropes. You don't have a system straight away. You haven't worked out the market. Your market message isn't fit to the right audience. You don't even know who your audience is or your target customer is. Notice everything I've just said, because all of those things you don't know, it may not be you, but the person hypothetically, can be solvable. But it takes time to solve that stuff. Okay? Maybe it's hard for you to find any of these opportunities because the market is tough, or you just don't know. We haven't spoken to the right people. But it takes time. But with that time, it means that you may have a certain level of instability, so to speak. But that instability is only the case if you're in a position where you're purely relying on stuff that isn't a 9 to 5. And this is why I'll never knock a 9 to 5, because I still believe it's important to have as a base, initially at least anyway. For some, it may be their be or end all, but for others who are interested in expanding, it's great for a base. And this is where it makes sense to have at least, I'm going to say 4, because 4 months seems to be the number that is consistent with me. I know people say 3 months, but 4 months worth plus of savings before you start thinking about doing your own thing completely. But even then, you need confirmations from stuff you've been doing to build up to this next point. And this is why having the right level of what's known as first principled thinking, okay, taking one step at a time and thinking extremely logically based on the problem that you're trying to solve, so you solve it efficiently and effectively, okay, and not moving on until you solve that problem, unless the observations and data has told you that actually you need to slightly pivot and you need to do it this way. Okay, so it's being very data driven, very solution focused, problem solving, all that kind of stuff there. The other thing is centered around, we call it time management. I like to call it activity management or energy management. Why do I say this? And it sounds a bit like out there or woo-woo, but Einstein would agree with me, so there. But time doesn't purely exist in of itself. And what I mean by that is time is a mechanism that we used based on helping us organize our activities. And of course, our reference is the movement of planets, the movement of the stars, you know, the sun, this, that, blah, blah, blah. So with that in mind, it exists in that sense. But in of itself, it doesn't exist. I say this to say what truly exists is the energy that you utilize. And so if you are utilizing your energy willy-nilly and you're not treating your energy like money, then of course you're going to put yourself in a position where you are overexerting yourself and you may even burn out. And the reason I say, you know, treat your energy like money, because if you have a goal in mind, let's say you're working for an organization, there's a certain project that you need to sort of like fulfill, and there's certain deliverables. You want to make sure that you budget it well and you're spending it properly, because that money has come from taxpayers' pockets. So you don't want to just spend it anyhow. You want to spend it properly based on the brief so that you can get the best bang for your buck. The same thing goes with your energy. And this is why you have to take calculated risks and be strategic in terms of your approach moving forward. And so I say this to say, time management is really activity management, which is really energy management. So notice your energy and understand what is working for you, what isn't working for you. Now, this isn't a license to go with, oh, I don't feel like doing this, so I'm not going to do it. No, I'm not saying that. There are things that you want to have in life or things that you want to be in life, but you hate doing some of the stuff to get towards it. That's just a sacrifice you have to make if that's truly what you want. And this is why I always say success begins at the beginning of sacrifice. So one of the first Instagram posts I ever posted back in 2017 or whatever it may be. So you have to think to yourself, how can you organize yourself properly? Now I could say, use my life navigation system tool, which I think you should check out. It should be in the link below. It's a great Notion template. But I would also say do a 2-week audit. 1 to 2 week audit. If you don't use a calendar, what are you doing? Use your calendar, man. Like I use my calendar I've been using a Google Calendar for at least, I want to say, maybe 14 years, 12 to 14 years. Back then, people thought I was crazy for doing it because I would send them an invite if I was to meet up with them or catch up with them, whatever it may be. I've been doing that for about 14 years at least, I know. And so it's really important to stay organized. So if you don't have a calendar, then every time you do something major in terms of an event or an activity during the day, note it down and then log and track and check to see what you've been doing. For the lazy people out there, and I'm lazy too, I like to do this myself, you can do a voice recording each day. Okay, so you can do a voice recording using the voice notes app. If your phone has AI attached to it, then you can get the transcript and put it into, ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it may be. But you basically voice record specifically what you did for the day. You do that every day for 7 days or 14 days. Put that consistently into one chat and then get ChatGPT to break down specifically what you've done and the percentage of times that you spent doing X, Y, and Z. So you'll have to know the times. You'll have to know roughly how long you did things for, when you did it, etc., etc. That's one way of doing it. That's a neat way of doing it. A really simple way of doing it, okay? Maybe you want to do this assisted by writing things down, or maybe you just want to write it down. However you do it, just audit your time. And then you see what you want to get rid of, what you want to keep, etc., etc. I'll never forget my sister, alongside my wife, my sister is my cheerleader. And I remember there was a couple of years ago, I was really frustrated because I was like, I've got so much to do and this, that, blah, blah. She was like, right. She's like my motivator. I'm motivating other people. She's motivating me. She's like, right, Michael, let's sit down. Let's look at your diary. Nope, you're not doing that. She didn't even do the whole coaching thing. She just said, you're not doing this. This is wasting your time. So if you got someone who could do that for you, look at your calendar and say, why are you doing this? Unless you've got a really good compelling reason, which I had some reasons and she's still stuck to her ground, then those things need to be removed. So get somebody to actually sense check you. My wife has done the same thing. She'll look at my calendar and say, no, don't do that. She's very good at saying no. Okay. You need someone like that. We work hand in hand, vice versa. But the point being made is that if you have that individual or individuals, then that's a winning formula. But you need to approach them and ask them for that help. So that's another thing that you can do. I guess the final thing you could do, which is the first thing that I mentioned, is use these different tools. So if you can use things like, again, Calendly for people to book things with you, even if it's your friend, or even I think if you have a premium Google account, you can now send out a Google calendar invite link to people. You can use things like Notion, or you can use Asana, Trello, all these different ones. I prefer Notion. It just makes sense to use that to just sort of track your activities. I'm not sort of just saying this, so to speak, but I've had loads of people within my close circle and other people who have bought my life navigation tool, and they found it to be extremely useful because it goes through the whole journey of not just sort of priming yourself for the year or for the next 90 days, but also it allows you to journal effectively and allows you to track your goals, track your day-to-day tasks, all of that kind of stuff there. So it's not just some, everyday tracker. I've done it with a certain design in mind. So if you're interested, definitely check it out below. So activity management, energy management, or time management is a big thing. There's also another con, okay? And this is to do with benefit gaps. So if you are doing anything within a contracting capacity, unless you've done this yourself, you can't rely on your client to provide you with benefits other than paying you. So these benefits could look like pension, this could look like health insurance, this could look like, money off certain things, or paid leave, or maternity leave, or paternity leave, or whatever that looks like, or sick leave. So you're going to have to set this up yourself, which means money out of your pocket. But you could argue in a 9 to 5 permanent employment, this stuff is accounted for already. You just don't see it, okay? Because there's always going to be a gross amount, and then there's going to be the PAYE deductions, and then other deductions as well. So the benefits gaps are different, but I would say the benefit of not having those benefits is that it educates you in terms of how you need to be financially savvy. And this is why you need to know about insurances, if that is applicable to you. And you need to know about protectionism and maintenance and reviewing your financial situation and talking to the right, like all of that stuff. You are your best financial advisor. So that's the counter to that. And I guess the other final thing I want to highlight is social stigma. So really and truly, there are some people who just don't believe in this whole idea of a portfolio career, even though like a lot of people are doing this already. Or they just think you're unemployed or unprofessional or unstable by nature because you're just all over the place, okay? But the reality is the people who are running this world all have portfolio careers. And some of them didn't have a silver spoon at the beginning. Some of them actually built this life. They built this reality. You may not even be a millionaire or billionaire to be able to be successful, to have a portfolio career. Some people just want to be able to have enough to do what they're doing, but live a certain lifestyle. And it really comes down to lifestyle. And so that's it really. That's pretty much all of the different things that come to mind when it comes to pros and cons. And if you've got any other ideas in terms of pros and cons, or any thoughts centered around what I've just spoken about, let me know. I'd love to know below. I'm trying to get back to people, but yeah, it's taking its time, I can't lie. So I appreciate all the wonderful and beautiful comments that you've provided to me. I'd also like to say, again, if you want to join my newsletter and really sort of like get information like this on a weekly basis in written form that you can always reference, that is specific, well, not specific to you, but in your inbox, should I say, then click on the link below and you can sign up. And even if you don't sign up, you can actually read my newsletter articles on my website as well, which is on michaeltabaradi.com/newsletters, I think, but you can check out my website anyway. Anyway, if you want to see more videos centered around portfolio careers and all of the above, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.